What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. It's balance patch morning, so guys, let's go in and take a look at the balance patch preview that Smilegate put out. I'll pull it up here right now. I have it ready to go, and I actually have a question for y'all before we begin. I'm going to go through my normal routine. We're going to take a look at each and every unit that's getting buffed, as well as the artifacts, and I'll give my quick take on what to expect, how it might shake things up. I do think overall this balance patch is going to be a little bit more impactful than our last few. I think we're kind of not too exciting, but this one in particular, boys, please do me a favor in the comments below, preferably after you watch the video or after at least you've read through it, what do you guys think about the units they chose? Because in my opinion, a lot of these kind of felt like they needed to either fill space. They went to heroes that, maybe could use a little love, but there are so many other heroes, you guys name the ones that are super weak and are missing from this list, that I think needed the love, or at least needed to be on these patches more. And honestly, I wouldn't be complaining as much if the balance patches didn't take 8 weeks, to come out. Every 2 months we have to wait, and this time around, there's still a lot of heroes that I think are underutilized, underplayed, very underpowered. And some of these heroes that are getting buffed either didn't need it at all, and some of them are a little ridiculous. So anyways, yeah, let me know in the comments, guys. But let's go ahead and go through each and every one. Alrighty, y'all, let's take a look at the patch preview for September 9/16. And it says it's scheduled to take place on the 29th, right? So about 2 weeks. 9 heroes, 2 artifacts, 1 ML5, 1 ML4, the rest RGBs, and then 2 arties. Pretty much par for the course. But yeah, let me max. Should I max this a little bit? Does the text get cut off? We'll keep it right there. Okay. So let's take a look, guys. So we got Straze as the ML5, Ravi, Kayron, Aria, Taiyu, Rowana, Blaze, Dingo, Kawana, and Hustle. And then for our 2 artifacts, we have Magic for Friends, which is Mercedes, right? Just red Mercedes artifact, and then Unfading Memories, which we have to talk about because on my DN coverage, boys, I'm glad I mentioned, maybe I should have mentioned it more, that, there's a possibility. I said it's not that great, but there's always a possibility that Smilegate might buff it. And here we are. So let's go down through the list, and let's go ahead and start with Straze. All right, guys. So Straze is our ML5 getting buffed, and I think Straze was already in a good spot. And if we consider the fact that Smilegate usually only does, one ML5 buff every 8 weeks, I know a lot of y'all out there want a different Moonlight 5. Top model Lulika, Pirate Captain Flan. There's just a lot of still underpowered ML5s that I think needed the love a little bit more than Straze, as he does see a lot of play, especially versus players like me, turn 2 tanky players. So I definitely don't like to see this, but I do think, it's not the worst case scenario, as he's not like overpowered. He's not overpowered by any means. He fits a specific role, and he does that job pretty well already. This is going to make him do his job even better. So what they're giving him, guys, is he can no longer trigger counterattack, which is actually pretty relevant. Units like Rem, Bellion, there's probably a few more out there, Violet maybe, that this is going to help Straze, or maybe his team, not take additional damage, because Straze does get invincibility, but it won't proc anything, potential strips, damage for his allies, whatever. And on top of that, boys, I see a lot of people missing this part. They're actually removing the pen rate condition, which I assume means he will almost, I guess that just means he's always get the 100% damage penetration. And he no longer has to, outscale the attack by a certain amount. So there's going to be less counterplay involved as well. I don't think this came up too often, but if you have like a high attack, let's say Apocalypse Ravi, guys, if you wanted to build a high HP plus high attack Senya, there were things you could do to mitigate Straze, or at least surprise the Straze opponent, and to out tank it, because you would lower the defense pen by building some attack on a tanky unit. I don't think that's going to be possible anymore. So not only does he not trigger counterattacks, but there's no gimmicky stuff that can be utilized to counterplay him, at least for the damage that he does. So overall, once again, the only reason I don't like this change, besides me being selfish and being a tanky player, turn 2 player, is that it could have went to a different ML5 that probably needed a little bit more. But anyone that uses Straze, this can just make him feel even nicer. A nice unit feel even nicer. I think that's how we should put it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we covered all of it. It's a very simple change, not too much added there, but should be good for any Straze users out there. All right, so speaking of units that were already pretty good but now getting even better, we have Fire Ravi. Now Fire Ravi has definitely fallen off. Don't get me wrong, guys, she's not seen all the time right now. However, with the prevalence, if you don't play a lot of high-end RTA, guys, if you don't play RTA actively right now, the meta, a lot of it involves bruisers, earth bruisers like Alencia and Senya. They're kind of running the field at the moment. So I wasn't a lot of us were expecting them, Smilegate, to buff a fire unit to kind of combat that. But Fire Ravi is already being used to fight those Earth Bruisers. She's already in a great spot to fight a lot of Earth units. So I don't think, this could have went to a underutilized, underpowered fire unit like Ilanov or Fire Ken, for example, just to add more variety. But, Ravi users, we should be excited. She's going to be even better. So let's go through the buffs. She's going to start with 40 Fighting Spirit, meaning she's going to be able to lead into skill 3 even faster. Effectiveness will go up to 70%, previously 50%, which isn't crazy by any means, 20% more effectiveness. But she does have debuffs, and, she has a stun on the skill 3, and her exclusive equipment also has access to one. We'll check that in just a second. And the Devil Drive now, the skill 3, will have its damage scaling. I believe they say below attack scaling is lowered, but defense pen 50% should be a net positive increase in damage. They say for sure she's going to do more damage. We'll have to see how much more. But remember what I said, guys. Fighting those Alencias, fighting those Senyas, bruisery Earth units, having to, they have a lot of defense. So having defense pen, we could already clearly see this is going to be a very, very nice damage increase. We'll just see how much. But overall, they kind of just restate that here. And on top of that, her exclusive equipment is now going to have 70% chance to apply unbuffable when using her skill 1. So like I said, boys, I'm pretty sure Smilegate wants us to fight those Alencias. Slapping that unbuffable anytime we skill 1 on her mitigates, it almost cuts her damage in half because we stop the Mind's Eye buff from happening, which disables the trample effect. So she's going to be a huge Alencia counter. Really good into Senya too. She was already good. Now she's going to be even more ridiculous. So we'll see how powerful she becomes, guys. Get those Ravis ready. And don't forget, you can also change out your exclusive equipment. Anytime they change these, sometimes I forget to take advantage. You have access to getting, I believe, a perfect exclusive equipment. You get to just choose one. So make sure if y'all want to have access to changing anything out, if you want to pick this one, for example, take advantage of the offer they're giving here. You only have a 2-week time limit. All right. Guys, next up we have Kayron, and unlike Ravi, right, the buffs are about half of what she got, but I think this is one of the most exciting, potentially one of the most powerful for the entire patch notes, and that's because they're going to allow him to counter now on his Void Slash. So Void Slash is the AoE, I think Void Slash is just the S1, but it activates an area of effect, meaning it hits every enemy when he has a buff. But previously, it couldn't be procced by counterattacks. Now, we can slap a counter set on him. We can slap the Urvalen, the Decrescent artifact on him. And we can get those huge AoE counters now on the Void Slash. So this is really, really impactful. This is going to open up the playing field to possible Kayron builds. We're definitely going to see way more Kayrons. I was already theory crafting a high effect resist counter Kayron build. We're going to slap on Dust Devil, Shepherds, the Urvalen Artie like I mentioned, have him on 0 speed, mega attack, maybe some effect resist, and just go to town on those counters. On top of that, he's also going to get increased evasion. So potentially you can dodge some of those units that want to strip him. Let's say like Hand Guy or Mediator Kawaric S2. Just for example, Ra's skill 1. Anything that strips on an attack, we now have a chance to dodge it when we do proc that immortality when our HP reaches 0. Or lethal damage, I should say. So that's definitely nice. And also the evasion can stack with your Urvalen artifact. Kind of a double dip. I do think, boys, you still might want to build effect resist on him if your gear permits. It's going to be hard to stack a lot of ER, but right, even with evasion, there's units that can just still strip if they just hit you. He still has kind of that weakness of either applying unbuffable, stripping the immortality, and then just killing him. So depending on that, let's see if we want to go ER or if we just want to stack damage and rely on the evasion. Overall, though, the fact that we can build counter on him now, have some, memes with Dust Devil or other arties, I think is going to be so fun and potentially very, very powerful. So I'm excited for this Kayron change. Next up, guys, we have Aria, who actually probably doesn't need buffs either. She's definitely fallen off a bit, mainly because I think the meta has shifted where there's a lot more potentially like area effect. With Alencia rising, obviously Aria's gonna get hard countered by units like Alencia, potentially even Senya. But overall, she was a very strong unit, guys. A lot of people didn't think she was strong on release, but when Aria gets, an Aria on a good build, finds a match where she is uncountered, meaning she doesn't have any AoE opponents, she will often win the match. She's either a must ban or she'll win the match on her own. She's already very good. She has a spot. She's just kind of a more niche unit. But overall, let's see what they're adding because I love using Aria. So any change is a welcome one in my opinion. She's going to have more blind when she counters. So her skill 1 always hits 2 units, but she's only going to allow this If you don't know how Aria works, she activates a skill 3, gets counter buff, grants stealth for her squad. Now anytime she counters with that skill, she's going to have a 20% chance to blind, which is really good. 70% chance in 2 units. And it says damage dealt increase, which I believe, let's see here, boys. She's going to lose the crit damage increase, the scaling crit damage, you know, in ratio with her health. As her health gets lower, she gets more crit damage. Now they're just increasing the damage dealt on her skill 1 and the big AoE skill 2. I think it's on her skill 2 passive. The skill 3 also will get a berry strength increase, which I think she actually needed. It felt a little bit mediocre on her initial release. She does, you know, a lot of people just have good enough gear to make her survive, but more berry strength I think does, she wants that, especially for players that don't have amazing gear. So overall, we'll have to see guys like the Ravi change. I hope it's a net positive damage increase. Let me see here if they say anything. Instead, we increase the damage dealt on her skills, Shadow Call and Dark Shadow Phantom, so that she inflicts high damage more consistently. So they didn't state that she's going to do more damage overall, but it should be more consistent. And, you know, her initial counters, as long as her health isn't low, will feel more impactful. I think that's a great change overall. And then the barrier is definitely welcome. Increased blind chance. Very good for players that like Aria, like me. All right, guys. Next up, we got Taiyu. Now, this is a unit, unlike the Aria, unlike the Ravi, unlike the Straze, Taiyu definitely needed some buffs, right, guys? He was very weak. And I think they actually hit it out of the park with the buffs when I was reviewing him. I'm pretty sure a lot of this is what me and a lot of you guys maybe mentioned that he could have used. But they're allowing him now to dispel all buffs, ignore ER. So no more silly, just dispel 2 buffs. And then when he's enraged, he dispels all buffs. Now he ignores ER and always dispels all buffs. The ignore ERs when he's enraged. And on top of that, he's going to increase his speed, which is synergistic with his kit, as he does have some speed scaling multipliers. Or his skill 1, I think. On top of that, let's see here. I guess there's nothing on top of that, but overall, I think those changes are what he needed. I don't know if that's enough, as right now, units like Taiyu are kind of in a tough spot, as sometimes they'll get out-bruisered. They won't do enough damage. That's just because his archetype, in my opinion, is a little bit of a tough one, where you kind of have to pick him just versus those units. I believe it was Parrot. It's been forever since I ran him. But we can't just always pick him as, like, let's say an Ice Bruiser, as we really want his kit to, we take advantage of the kit. So, you know, units that cast non-attack skills. I think for that role, they did a good job on the buffs that he needed. So players that wanted Taiyu or used Taiyu for those roles like anti-para, it's going to feel so much better. I actually expect him to be seen quite a bit more often now. Rowana, on the other hand, guys, this one just blew my mind why they threw this in here. It really just strikes me as they just needed a unit. They couldn't come up with anything else. They just wanted to, I don't know, fill the gap if they couldn't have something else, because this was just so ridiculously. It's such an unimpactful change, and it's a buff that a unit definitely did not need. Now her Noble Reikos, which I believe is a skill, the skill 3, will now grant a barrier and an HP scaling barrier. So, I mean, guys, I use Rowana, so having a barrier is obviously nice, but she definitely didn't need that. I don't think anyone was asking for it. I'm pretty sure even on their internal data, Rowana is, you know, she's in a great spot. I don't know why this happened. I'm not going to complain because it's something I needed, but it just shows, guys, you know, all the units I mentioned where I kept saying another unit could have been in this place. Now I have to wait another 8 weeks. Technically 4, boys, but on a general schedule, we only get buff patches every 2 months. Rowana taking a spot here is just not great in my opinion. But anyways, moving along, we got Blaze Dingo. Blingo, another unit that I think definitely needed some buffs. He's almost never seen anymore because he's very difficult to build. But now he's actually going to have a defense break on his skill 2, which is an AoE attack. So maybe we'll see him more often in cleaves. They didn't really do too much, but AoE defense break is obviously very powerful for 2 turns. So maybe those Blaze Dingo fans out there will pick him up again. Maybe we'll see him more often in some cleave setups. It's kind of interesting. All right, guys. Kawana now. What is this? Grant skill nullifier once to fire elemental allies. And increases combat radius of fire elemental allies by 20%. So Kwana's a hero. However, it's difficult to utilize her because the conditions for supporting allies were complex. So they just make it... Now she definitely fulfills her role for PvE. Right, guys? Maybe some fun PvP setups with full fire squads, but those are usually just gimmicks. Casual introduction, rough welcome will grant supporting effects. And it should be easier to apply. Okay. I mean, those are probably needed. I can't complain about that. Let me know if you guys like the Kawana one. But she's very good in certain, like, expos. Maybe Maybe in the advents. Next one's going to be Ice, though, so we won't use her there. But for the Earth advent, definitely. All right, next up, boys, is Hustle, the 3-star. I think she is the... Is she the light one? Maybe she's the... I think she's the dark one, actually. She kind of looks like Falcon or Clury. But Hustle is now... This is actually quite a lot, boys. She's going to lose a little bit of healing, it seems, on the Swift Cut. But now her counter... She was always kind of implemented as a, anti-counter unit. When an ally suffers a counterattack, the damage... Decreases damage suffered by 25%. That's actually very, very big. Before, she would just get combat readiness when a counter would happen and then, get that swift cut damage increase on the flat damage. But now, damage suffered by counterattacks is reduced by 25%. That's a lot. On top of that, she increases combat readiness and then also increases the fixed damage of swift cut and punishing strike. Okay, so I actually don't use Hustle yet, boys. I do have some of my Twitch viewers use her here and there, but this is actually, I think, very impactful, especially the players, maybe newer players that are struggling against any counter unit. I don't know, Rem, Fire, Meru, just to name a few. Maybe that's going to be the 25% damage suffered is pretty big. She's also going to have access to more the fixed damage on the Swift Cut and Punching Strike. After suffering counterattack, decreases skill cooldown by 1 turn too. Okay, wow. They're changing a lot, guys. So I don't really use Hustle, but I think this is actually quite an impactful change to fight counter units. So once again, I think we'll see more of her. I might even try picking her up because I do think she looks good. Just remember, guys, she's a 3-star, so a lot of times their stats are a little bit low. She might suffer from that until she gets an SC potentially. But yeah, I like that change overall. Very, very anti-counter. Now, here's one, guys, that I definitely think was not needed at all. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all think the same. Fire Mercedes, Magic for Friends. She's going to get more crit damage reduction. This is the artifact, by the way, guys, that everybody gets for free when you complete episode 3. Effectively, guys, she's going to have more damage reduction. And on top of that, what would happen is sometimes she would proc the... All right, I guess not sometimes. I think activated upon death. Anytime she would die, her Dimensional Rupture, it has a 2-turn cooldown. Now, effectively, when she dies and comes back, boys, all you have to think about is she'll still have a chance to activate... if she didn't previously, before those 2 turns, activate her counter effect, the Magic for Friends, which is a 50% chance to activate her big damage skills, right? Her AoE damage. So overall, she definitely didn't need it. I don't think this is too impactful, but since she's already seen all over the place, I'm not sure why they decided to give her even more buffs. She will now, sometimes after you kill her, guys, she might counter again, and then she's going to have more damage reduction. She definitely didn't need this, but at least it wasn't a huge change. All right. Last but not least, boys, and I'm glad in my DN video I mentioned they might buff Unfading Memories. Remember, you still have a week to pull, so I would recommend maybe getting 1 copy because effect resist by 25% is very, very nice. That's a huge just stat stick increase, and now her healing will be 10% at max, where previously it was 8%. So 10% at max, and remember we heal 4 units. That's actually quite a big change. So I think this is pretty good for users that play that. I think this is great for DN, maybe units like Amelia. Me personally, I really like Guardian Ice Crystals on other Soul Eaters. I don't use too much of DN lately at all, but I do think this is such a big change that y'all should try to pick up Unfading Memories. I don't think it's garbage anymore. But if you don't have powder, guys, I think, even with the big changes, the fact that it's AoE, sometimes you still will value single target healing more. So don't sweat it too much, but try to get it if you can, as this change is pretty significant. It's just the 25% ER and the increased healing is quite a lot. So overall, guys, let's wrap it up there. I think the video went on long enough. Let me know what you think. One last thing. The 4-week, they're gonna have the next balance patch in 4 weeks, but we're still gonna be on an 8-week schedule. They're just trying to line it up better for the RTA season ending, I think is what they're saying here. So just be aware of that, guys. But anyways, I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the overall patch notes. Who would you rather see on these? And yeah, guys, catch y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.